It happened in a beige conference room tucked in the administrative wing of a private school just outside Austin. The kind of room that thinks silence is polite. A long table, bottled water, a fake plant. The clock on the wall barely ticked. We were there to discuss a curriculum update for Eric, Laura's son, my stepson. Something to do with electives and community service hours. The sort of meeting where I always showed up in pressed shirts, nodded at the right moments, and signed the line no one else thought to question. A warm body with a working credit card. The principal, a square-shouldered man with the weary eyes of someone who'd sat through too many parent conferences, began by addressing us both. "So the guardian listed here is Mr. Holbrook?" And Laura didn't even blink. She didn't even look at me. "He's not a guardian," she said. "He's just the one who pays." Silence. Dead silence. The teachers froze. Even the assistant principal shifted in his chair. One of the mothers from a nearby meeting glanced in, pretending to check her phone. I remember the fluorescent light buzzing above me like static pressed against my skull. I said nothing, not out of politeness, not out of strategy, but because something inside me had fallen still. The principal offered a brittle smile, adjusted his glasses, and kept going. Only now, the conversation narrowed. Every glance went to her. Every sentence started with Mrs. Collins. I sat 3 feet from Laura, and I may as well have been an empty chair. That wasn't the part that hurt. The part that hurt was how easily it happened. How natural. Like the decision had already been made long before we entered that room. The car ride home was 15 minutes. I remember every second. The way the trees leaned toward the road. The sound of tires humming across warm pavement. Laura checked her phone 3 times. Scrolled through messages. Replied to one. Laughed under her breath. She didn't mention what she said. Didn't apologize. Didn't seem to realize it had even happened. We pulled into the driveway of our house in Round Rock. The house I had put the down payment on. The one I remodeled with my own hands. Working weekends to finish the trim because we couldn't afford contractors back then. The garage door stuttered open. The sun cut across the lawn in long golden slices. Everything looked normal, but I felt like a man watching his own home from the outside. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't slam doors or raise my voice. I grilled chicken. She made salad. Eric holed up in his room like always, headphones in, door closed. At dinner, we talked about the weather, about the neighbor's new puppy, about how gas prices were creeping up again. None of it mattered. Not after the words she'd said. Just the one who pays. And the way she said it. That was the part that kept playing in my mind. The ease of it, the casual tone, like she'd simply described the weather. No tension in her voice. No awareness of cruelty. Which meant it wasn't cruelty. Not to her. It was just truth. A simple, established fact. I laid in bed that night with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow, deliberate circles. I thought back, not just to the meeting, but to all the little moments that had led up to it. The Christmas 3 years ago when I spent $2,000 on a gaming console, and Todd, Eric's real father, sent a single text that said, "Merry Christmas, Bud." And somehow that was the memory that stuck. The parent-teacher night where I asked a question about Eric's math scores, and the teacher looked confused and said, "Oh, I thought his father couldn't make it tonight." The birthday party where I paid for everything, venue, food, DJ, even the damn balloon arch Laura insisted on. And still, the thank you card went to her. Just her. And I saw it clearly for the first time. I was present but not included. Responsible but not respected. Needed but never acknowledged. I was a financial ghost. Everywhere and nowhere at once. At PTA meetings, I was Mr. Collins. A name that wasn't even mine. At dinner, I was the one who asked how school went and got a shrug. When Eric needed rides, gear, lunch money, I was the first number dialed. But when it came time for decisions, summer camp, electives, college planning, I wasn't in the room. They spoke in a code I didn't understand. My family, our son, we think. And somewhere buried in those little phrases was the truth. I didn't exist where it counted. I paid the bills, and for that I was tolerated. But never trusted, never honored, never family. I remembered the way Eric looked at me 2 years ago, when I asked him to mow the lawn. "You're not my dad," he'd muttered. Not loud, not cruel, just factual, dismissive, like he was correcting a teacher who'd marked the wrong name on a test. I told myself then that it was just adolescence, that I'd earn his respect eventually, that he'd grow up and realize who had shown up and who hadn't. But now I wasn't sure. Maybe some truths don't change with time. Maybe blood is louder than presence. That night, I lay in that bed beside the woman I had built a life with, and I realized something terrifying. I had constructed a home out of borrowed bricks. Every piece of it, the mortgage, the dinners, the vacations, the tuition plans, had been poured from me into a foundation that didn't include me. Laura stirred beside me, her breath even, her body warm. She reached for my hand in the dark. I let her find it, but I didn't close my fingers, because something inside me was already gone. And I knew that if I spoke up the next morning, if I said, "Hey, what you said in that meeting really hurt," she would frown and say I was overreacting, that I was being sensitive, that I'd taken it out of context. And she would believe it, because to her I was just the one who paid. Not a father, not a partner, just the function that kept the lights on. The next morning I drove Eric to school. His backpack thudded against the seat. He didn't speak, didn't say thank you. He got out at the curb, shut the door, and walked off without a glance. And I realized he didn't hate me. He didn't even dislike me. He just didn't see me. I was the app that loaded his allowance, the car that got him places, the man who paid. And Laura, well, she loved me, I think. But not in the way people love someone they see as family. It was closer to appreciation. Gratitude, maybe, but not belief. Not us. On the way back from school, I passed the same gas station I always did. The sign said $3.87 for regular. I pulled in, filled the tank, went inside for coffee. As I stood in line, I looked at the woman ahead of me. Maybe early 40s, juggling 2 kids and a wallet. She looked tired, worn thin. But I noticed something. When one of the kids asked a question, she didn't answer. She looked at them, stopped what she was doing, gave them her attention. And I realized it had been weeks since anyone in my house had looked at me that way, maybe longer. I got back in the car, hot coffee in hand, and sat there. The engine idled. A song I didn't recognize played on the radio. I looked down at my hands on the steering wheel, these hands that had built our fence, replaced our water heater, repaired the dryer last spring. And I thought, how many years have I spent pouring into people who never once asked where the water came from? How many times have I been the solution and never part of the equation? That's when the thought arrived. Quiet, sharp. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't write it down. But it stuck. If I am just the one who pays, then maybe I should stop. I didn't confront Laura the next day. I didn't pull her aside and say, "That thing you said, it mattered." I didn't demand an apology. I didn't craft a speech or wait for the right moment to teach a lesson in dignity. No, that would have given her too much credit. That would have meant I still believed a conversation could fix it. Instead, I watched. And once you start watching, you can't unsee it. The way she'd refer to my son at dinner when Eric was 2 rooms away. The way she spoke to friends on the phone and said, "We're figuring out high school stuff, me and Eric," even if I had been the one filling out enrollment forms while she watched TV. The way she never asked what I thought, only what I could do. The way decisions came wrapped in assumptions. I watched Eric, too. The way he talked to me only when something was needed. "Can you pick me up after practice? Can I get $20 for lunch? Did you fix the charger?" He never asked about my day. Never said goodnight. Never asked why I looked tired. I wasn't a person. I was a resource. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table. Same one we picked out together 3 years ago. The same one I sanded and stained in the garage, hands aching, before bringing it inside piece by piece. I sat with my laptop open, coffee gone cold, phone face down. The house was quiet. Laura was upstairs in the bath. Eric was in his room gaming, the soft buzz of his headset leaking through the drywall. Outside, the Texas sun dipped behind the fence, painting the yard in dull amber. I opened the banking app. There it was. Every auto payment, every deduction, lined up like obedient soldiers. $2,476. Monthly tuition to Harper Creek Academy. $300. Weekly transfer to Eric's spending card. $85. Music program fee. $160. Seasonal athletics enrollment. $42.99 online math tutor subscription. All of them tied to my name. All of them authorized from my account, my email, my card. Neat, efficient, silent. It had taken years to set them up this cleanly. Years of phone calls, password resets, emails confirming and reconfirming. All so that the household could run without Laura ever lifting a finger. She liked to joke that I was the operations guy. She wasn't wrong. But now I saw the other side of that joke. The machinery works best when it doesn't speak. I moved the cursor. Tuition. Cancel. Program fees. Cancel. Autopay off. Linked account. Remove. Each confirmation came with a satisfying green checkmark. No warnings. No guilt. No human being asking me if I was sure. Just clicks. Final. Irrevocable. Clean. Then the school's portal. The one Laura never bothered logging into because you're better with that stuff. I changed the email on file to hers. Changed the billing contact. Set the system to account inactive. Uploaded a notice. Please redirect all financial correspondence to Mrs. Laura Collins. I stared at that line for a while. Her name. No mention of mine. Just as she preferred it. Then I hit save. The screen blinked. Done. For the first time in my adult life, I understood the power of subtraction. Of removing yourself. Not loudly, not bitterly, but precisely, silently, with the same quiet grace that got you erased in the first place. No threats, no fights, just silence. I opened a new tab, logged into Eric's prepaid card account, the one I refilled each week so he could eat with friends, buy gas, treat himself to things his real father never once offered to help pay for. I stared at the balance, $112.44. I transferred the remaining funds back to my own account. Then I shut the card down. 3 buttons. Done. No need for a speech. No ceremony. Next came the subscriptions, all the ones tied to my bank. Spotify Premium, Eric's, YouTube Family, Laura and Eric both. The cloud storage they never once thanked me for. Each one gone. I'd built a castle of conveniences, and now I was pulling out the bricks. I closed the laptop. My chest felt hollow, not with sadness, but with space. Like someone had opened a window in a suffocating room. Laura came downstairs a few minutes later. Hair still damp. Phone in hand. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. Eric's got practice early tomorrow. Can you drop him off? I nodded. Sure. She didn't ask what I was working on. Didn't notice the slight change in my eyes. The way my shoulders had stopped tensing. She moved past me, humming something under her breath. I wondered, for just a moment, what she would do when the first bill hit her inbox. When the tuition system bounced back. When Eric's card declined. Would she call me indignant? Would she accuse me of sabotaging our family? Would she even realize the moment she made this happen? Because it started with one sentence in that school office. He's not a guardian. He's just the one who pays. I repeated it silently that night like a prayer. Not a guardian. Not a father. Just the one who pays. It was strange, how freeing it felt, accepting their version of me. Stripping away the illusion that I had a say, a place, a claim. They didn't want me as a parent. They wanted me as a pipeline, and I had finally turned off the valve. I went to bed early that night. No words. No explanation. Laura asked if everything was okay. I said, just tired. She nodded. Of course I was tired. 6 years of paying for a life that didn't include me, that's the kind of tired you don't fix with sleep. Eric didn't say goodnight. He never did. The next morning, the sky was the color of dust and ash, that pale gray just before the sun forces its way in. I dropped him off at school. He muttered, thanks, without looking at me. I watched him walk through the doors of a place that no longer knew my name. It was done. The final fracture hadn't come with yelling or accusations. Came with logins, passwords, cancel buttons, with silence. Later that day, I sat in my office at work. A spreadsheet glowed on one screen. On the other, my banking app. I stared at the list of canceled payments like a general surveying a battlefield after the smoke had cleared. And for the first time in years, the balance looked right. Not just in numbers. In principle. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't a message. It was math. If you remove the one who pays, what's left? They were about to find out. It started with a voice through the wall. Not mine. Not Eric's. Laura's. Tight. Strained. A note higher than usual. No, I wasn't aware. I'll have to check with yes. Yes, of course. I understand. Yes. I was in the garage, sorting through a bin of old caulk tubes and paint-stained rags, looking for a screwdriver I hadn't needed in months. The door to the kitchen was cracked. I heard her pace. Her voice was thin and professional, the kind you save for strangers who hold power over something precious. Then silence. Then footsteps. Then the sound of her phone slamming against the granite countertop. I came in a minute later. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. I just got a call from Harper Creek, she said. They said the tuition payment failed. That your account is no longer listed. That the billing contact is me. I nodded. That's right. She stared at me. Not confused. Not shocked. But like someone trying to figure out how long the knife had been in their side before they noticed the bleeding. You changed everything? She asked. Without telling me? You told them I wasn't a guardian, I said. I assumed you wanted to handle it. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then, as expected, came the rewriting. I didn't mean it like that. You're taking that completely out of context. There was no context, I said calmly. It was a simple sentence. 7 words. She shook her head. You're making this into something it's not. I didn't respond, because I wasn't making anything. I was undoing. She crossed her arms. You should have talked to me. I met her eyes. You didn't talk to me. Not in that office. Not afterward. It came out wrong. You know how these meetings go. I was nervous. I wasn't thinking. You were thinking clearly enough to define me, I said. And I listened. Her voice rose. So now what? You're just going to walk away from everything? From Eric's future? I said nothing, because that was the real question, wasn't it? Not what I did, but how dare I do it? How dare the engine stop running? How dare the quiet man finally make noise? Not with words, but with subtraction. She turned away, hands on the counter, breathing sharp. Her phone buzzed once. Then again. I could see the panic blooming beneath her skin. Later that afternoon, Eric came down the stairs holding his phone like it had betrayed him. Why isn't my card working? His voice was annoyed, entitled. I looked at Laura. She looked at me. Neither of us answered. He asked again, louder. What's wrong with my card? I tried to get lunch and it declined. I finally spoke. I closed the account. He stared at me, confused. Why? I shrugged. It wasn't mine to fund anymore. Eric scoffed. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means, I said, that if I'm not your guardian, I'm not your bank. He turned to Laura. Is this a joke? She didn't answer. Not then. Not really. That night, the house was brittle. Quiet in the way glass is quiet before it breaks. Eric slammed his bedroom door 3 times. Laura reheated dinner and pushed her food around with a fork. I ate in silence. I was already full, not from food, but from the quiet satisfaction of truth. The next morning, it escalated. Laura stormed into the room, phone in hand, face pale. They've locked the school portal. I can't see Eric's grades. They're saying the account is in arrears. That we have 5 business days before services are paused. I nodded. She looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. You're not serious. I'm not involved, I said. Not a guardian. Just the one who pays. And now I don't. Jesus, Michael, she whispered. This is Eric's education. I looked at her, dead in the eye. No, I said. This was a line. And you drew it. She took a shaky breath. We can fix this. Just call the school. Tell them it was a mistake. It wasn't. She blinked. This is cruel, she said. No, I replied. This is clarity. Eric confronted me that afternoon. He'd clearly been coached, or maybe he rehearsed the words in his mirror before coming downstairs. I need to talk to you, he said flatly. I nodded. He stood awkwardly, unsure whether to sit or remain defiant. He chose to stand. I don't know what's going on between you and Mom, but this isn't fair. I waited. I need that card for food, for gas. I've got practice and we have to bring our own gear. You can't just cut everything off because you're mad. I set my pen down. I'm not mad. He tilted his head. Then what is this? It's me stepping away from something I was never really in. He frowned. What? You've made it clear who I am, who I'm not. That's not true. You said it, I said. In words, in tone, in the way you've treated me for years. That's just how teenagers are. No, I said. That's how people act when they know there are no consequences. He looked at me, confused, then angry. So that's it? You're just gonna let me get kicked out of school? I'm going to let your mother and your father handle it, I said. That's what guardians do. He stared at me. He won't pay. He never pays. You know that. I do, I said. But you made your choice. You made it the moment you stopped seeing me as anything but an ATM. He didn't know what to say to that, because he didn't think I'd ever say it. They never think that. Not the children. Not the wives. Not the families built on silence and sacrifice. They think the machine keeps running, even when they spit on it, even when they rename it, even when they publicly erase it. I returned to my work. Eric stood there for a while longer, like someone waiting for a verdict that had already been delivered. Then he left. Laura didn't speak to me that night. Not directly. She made dinner, cleaned, watched a show. But her silence wasn't passive. It was a demand. She was waiting for me to relent, for the man she married to show up and patch things again. She didn't know that man was gone. K** led not by betrayal but by truth. Truth that I had watched unfold slowly, like rot behind a wall. The meeting had just revealed what had always been hidden. I was the one who paid. Nothing more. And if that's all I was, then I was free. Free to stop. Free to watch. Free to let the consequences come. And they would. They always do. I didn't leave. There were no packed bags. No slammed doors. No dramatic exits into the Texas dusk. I stayed not out of fear or weakness, but because departure suggests you still want something. That there's a conversation left to have. There wasn't. What I wanted, they couldn't give. What they wanted, I wouldn't give anymore. So I didn't vanish. I withdrew, piece by piece. First, it was the school. The services were suspended within the week. Laura received the email. Eric received a printed notice in homeroom. They didn't tell me. I found the letter in the trash the same night, torn down the middle, as if ripping paper could reverse a system that now required full payment up front. No installment plan, no deferred deadlines, no scholarship appeals. Just one number and one question. Who is financially responsible for Eric Collins? Not me. Then came the rent on the off-campus apartment, the utilities, the gym membership, the pocket money for weekend outings, rideshare apps, new cleats, data overages. All gone. Some of them stopped silently, frozen by my name disappearing from the account. Others sent messages. Your payment method has been declined. Please update your billing details. They went unanswered. I watched from the other side of the glass. Eric paced more, ate less, slept late and rose angry. His room became a bunker. I'd hear him mutter behind closed doors, scrambling for solutions that wouldn't come. Calls were made. Arguments followed. One afternoon I heard him shout, "No, you're supposed to be my dad. That's your job." The walls did nothing to hide it. The voice on the other end must have said no. I heard something crash, a thud, a growl, then silence. When he came down to dinner that night, His face was tight, like he was holding himself together by sheer force of denial. He didn't speak, just sat. Left. Laura tried again, of course. Late nights, soft tones. He's struggling, she said. You know that. I nodded. Maybe we just get through the semester, she whispered. Just until things calm down. We can figure the rest out later. She wouldn't say the word help, but I saw it, floating between her eyes and mouth. A ghost of expectation. The same ghost that had fed and clothed and carried a boy not mine for years. I said nothing, because my silence now had weight, because silence had become my language. She pushed harder a few days later. We can't just let him fall. Michael, he's still a kid. I looked at her, calm, unmoved. So am I still the one who pays? She blinked. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it enough to say it, I replied. Her hands dropped to her lap. She didn't speak again that night. The house became quiet, but not peaceful. There's a kind of stillness that comes not from calm, but from tension so thick it strangles every word before it's spoken. The dinners were short. The evenings were silent. The mornings were rushed. Eric left earlier, came home later. When he was home, he stayed upstairs. The glow of his monitor, the only light I saw from under the door. And I let it happen, not out of cruelty, but out of consequence. One night, around 11, I heard footsteps. Slow, uncertain. Then a knock on my office door. Eric. Not loud, not aggressive, just a soft rap. I said, "Come in." He opened the door like it was heavier than it should be. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I didn't speak. He stood there for a moment, looking at the ground, then back at me. I didn't mean it. That day, the school. I didn't think it mattered. It did, I said. He nodded. I know. He trailed off. I thought you'd always be there, like no matter what. You know? I looked at him, his face thinner, shoulders tense. The confidence had drained from him, leaving something raw in its place. I'm not asking for money, he said quickly. I swear. I didn't know what else to do. You always handled things. And you never asked why, I said. He flinched. You lived under my roof, ate my food, spent my money, and the second someone asked a real question, your mother said I wasn't your guardian. And you didn't correct her. He looked away. I didn't know how. You knew how to say no when I asked you to help with the yard. You knew how to say, "You're not my dad," when it suited you. He was quiet. You're not a child anymore, Eric, I said. You've had years to see the difference between presence and absence. You chose absence. And now absence is what you get. His eyes welled. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I know, I said. But this is what it became. He nodded once, twice, then left. Didn't cry. Didn't slam the door. Just left. 3 days passed. Then Laura tried again. He's going to lose his place at school, she said. He's this close to failing. He's spiraling. I nodded. That happens. You don't care. I stopped caring. Her face changed. Something behind her eyes fractured. You don't mean that. I mean every word. I meant them when I paid for his braces, for his driving lessons, for the laptop he never thanked me for. I meant it when I stood in the bleachers for his games, when I drove him across town for tutoring, when I gave him my name at the emergency room. Her mouth opened. I kept going. And I meant it when I sat in that meeting beside you, and you cut me out in front of everyone. You drew a line. All I did was respect it. You're punishing him. I'm reminding him. Of what? I looked at her. That respect isn't a retroactive currency. You don't get to spend it once the money's gone. She stepped back. She knew I was done. Not just with Eric, but with her, with the silence, the complicity, the easy way she had let me become invisible so long as the bills got paid. A week later, I received a letter from the school, handwritten, from the principal. Polite update. Eric had been withdrawn. Unpaid tuition. Unresponsive contact. They wished him well. Laura didn't mention it. She didn't have to. The house grew colder. The routines unraveled. Eric started working part-time. Borrowed Laura's car. Missed dinner more often than not. Slept late. Drifted. I didn't stop him. Didn't advise. Didn't interfere. He had chosen his reality. I was just letting it arrive. Laura grew quiet. Less combative. But not apologetic. She never said the words. And so neither did I. The months passed. Then came winter. The lights went up on the block. The air thinned. Laura decorated alone. Eric didn't help. I watched from the window, silent. Christmas came and went. No gifts. No tree for me. No stocking with his name. Just silence. A decision sealed. Not in anger. Not in hate. But in clarity. I stayed. But I was no longer there. Not for him. Not for her. Not for the lie we had built.